Good. Welcome back to another weekly Hospice 101 live education talk. This is your first time. Welcome. We've been doing this now for the last month or so. We've been around for about 20 years doing home health, hospice, personal care services in Dallas, Fort Worth. And what we've seen and what I've seen over the last several years as the administrator is that there's just not a lot of education when it comes to hospice care or healthcare at home. So we decided to do these to really give some information to everyone when it comes to what is hospice and making it simple and digestible, if that's a word. Yeah, digestible, so that you can understand it. And then when the time comes for your loved one or family member or yourself needing it, then you know to make an informed decision, a good informed decision. So this month is actually Parkinson's Awareness Month. And so, what we're going to be doing also in the next several months is that we'll go over a specific diagnosis monthly, and we'll tailor those Hospice 101s to the diagnosis and pull back from our patients that we've seen over the last several years and educate on what Parkinson's is when it comes to hospice care or home health care needed at home. So, for those who are having Parkinson's or know someone who has Parkinson's, this is a great video for you guys to watch. And let's go. So, stats. We always start with stats. And so when it comes to hospice care, close to 2 million people annually are on hospice, which is a lot of people. And with a terminal diagnosis that qualifies them for hospice care. But the reality of it is that about 18 to 21 days is the average of people that are on hospice. They don't actually get to absorb and utilize the full benefit, which is 6 months. And some families and some patients live longer than 6 months and they have to be recertified clinically. And so what we've seen and what we've heard is that a lot of families say, I wish I would have started hospice sooner. If I qualified, I wish I would have had more of the help that you guys have been such a blessing. And that's hospices all over the nation. And so I think the reason why we wanted to do this is just to give some education. So, and for this specific Hospice 101, we're going to talk about a previous patient of ours, and her name is Miss Evelyn May Carter. She was a hairdresser. So these stories are stories retold for HIPAA purposes to make sure that we honor all of our patients and we kind of retell them and reframe them so that you can basically see yourself in their shoes and understand what have gone through, so that you can make a good decision for yourself. So let's talk about Miss Evelyn, front porch sweetheart. She's from Savannah, Georgia. She is a Bulldog fan. So Georgia Bulldogs. If you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan, she was a big one. And so Evelyn, at that time, 55 years old. She is known for her sweet tea, and she loved line dancing, and was a hairdresser for 40 years. She met her husband James at church at a fish fry in their 20s, and that's really the good old country girl, Miss Evelyn. And so one of the things that that we see a lot is that when you may not get diagnosed early, but you never know when it comes to Parkinson's disease that it could basically pop up out of nowhere. And so Evelyn at 55, she's living her life, doing her thing, enjoying her grandkids, and just enjoying life. And I think what happened was that she got into her 70s. She noticed some small changes, really, really small changes, and her hands began to tremble. Her movements, when she was trying to do small movements like dexterity with her hands, like she used to crochet, and it'd be very difficult for her to do that. And she was like, "Man, it's different." She didn't know what was going on. And at that time, she got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, but she was still living her life. And I think the hardest part when it comes to Parkinson's is that the things that you do or like to do, you're not able to do them anymore. And so at that time, her doctor referred her to us to take care of her for home health. And so from a therapy standpoint, from a home health standpoint, we worked on how do we get her from where she's at now, and that even though she has Parkinson's disease, how do we help her to continue to enjoy the quality of life that she does have. And so doing physical therapy and nursing, medication management, but her falls began more frequently. And even from a mobility standpoint, therapy wise, it was difficult because her condition, her Parkinson's, was getting worse. And so she met some goals. She did great, 60 days, 120 days, 6 months for home health, but her diagnosis kept getting worse. And so That's the difficult part when it comes to diseases like Parkinson's, is that not only did she have more falls, but she wasn't able to do the things that she loved to do. And so now, recently, she had a shift: multiple falls, difficulty swallowing, increased weakness, more time spent now in the bed and in the chair, and not doing what she used to love to do, which she can't now because of her diagnosis. And then she had more hospitalizations. And so, as the condition advanced at the hospital, the doctor was telling her husband and family that I think you need to make maybe consider hospice care because of the decline, and I'm not sure how long she has to live. And so that's the hardest part. Miss Evelyn going from line dancing, sweet tea, hairdresser, to the state that she's in now. And as a family unit, when you hear the word hospice, it's not something that you just gloss over, right? It's death. It feels like death immediately. And so that's where Evelyn and their family are right now. And so this is the first time you're watching this, and you just hopped on right now. Welcome. We've been doing these Hospice 101 education talks weekly on Tuesdays to really help families understand what is hospice. And since it's Parkinson's Awareness Month, we're focusing on the disease Parkinson's, and talking about a story, a patient of ours. We retell the story to help you sit in their shoes to see if this sounds like something that you can relate to, or you have a loved one that you can relate to. So, Evelyn, the family, they got the news from the hospital that it's time for hospice. Like, what do we do? Like, what does this even mean? Like, how do I start the process of hospice? And so I'm gonna take you through a hospice 101 as if Evelyn called the office and really was trying to understand what is hospice with this new diagnosis. The family is trying to figure it out. So when you think of hospice, think of it as several different areas, several different things, but there's three things. We're going to focus on what hospice focus on, where hospice happens, and also when is hospice appropriate. So hospice is all about managing pain and symptom control. There's a lot of emotional help because it's end of life, and there's a lot of support. Now, when you think of birth and a baby coming into the world, there's so many people around that baby and that mom to help that process. Hospice is the same approach. It is a team of clinicians that are there to help guide you through this next stage. And so there's a lot of support, and then also making sure that you're honoring your loved one's wishes, or honoring Evelyn's wishes. And so where does hospice happen? Hospice can happen several different places. It could happen at home. So now let's say Evelyn's wishes are to be at home. She does not want to be in a facility. She doesn't want to be at a group home. She doesn't want to be anywhere but home. Home is home for her. Home sweet home. And so hospice can be done there. Now, if Evelyn wanted to live in an assisted living facility, she could do that. Hospice could go there. And so there's hospice goes wherever the patient is. And so sometimes it could be a group home, which is like several people in one house that's that's tailored for care, aging in place. Hospice can be done there as well. When is hospice appropriate? So now Evelyn is at the hospital. The doctor wrote an order, probably the social worker coordinated and said, based on the doctor's needs, I think based on what the doctor sees, I think hospice is appropriate. And so the doctor determines, writes the order, but it's the job of the hospice to qualify. So what that means is that, let's say the doctor says, okay, I think you need hospice. The hospice usually comes out or reviews everything clinically to see if they meet the qualifications. So that's what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So that's the process of hospice and starting hospice, or knowing when hospice is appropriate. So when you think about hospice and the parts of hospice, let's talk about three things, three areas: the care team, supplies, DME, and medication. So now we're talking about there's several different layers of hospice, but if you can at least grasp the three areas of hospice, it'll help you understand what you will receive when you start hospice care. And so let's talk about the care team. So we talked about like birth, right? When you have a doctor, you have classes, you have going to the hospital, you have an OBGYN, then you still have a PCP, then all these people around to help guide you through birth. And so the same comes with hospice. So you have a chaplain and social worker who's available. Now, they are there to help you emotionally and spiritually, depending on your faith. If you don't have a faith, they are there to support you through that process. And then you also have a hospice nurse. The hospice nurse, the RN, is the quarterback. That nurse's job is to really guide you through the terminal diagnosis and help create a good plan for you. And so that nurse will come out, do an assessment, see what's going on with your medications, walk through all your current medications. Hospice will cover certain medications and they won't cover certain medications. The job of the nurse, what we've seen is the best hospices, what they do is they tailor towards the needs of the patient and walk them through and educate them on what's needed. That's the job of the RN, the quarterback of the team. The next part is a very pivotal part, which is the hospice aides. So the aides come in now. The aides aren't there to be there for like 4 to 6 hours, mow your lawn, right? The aide is actually underneath the license of the RN. So the RN creates a care plan. When the RN comes out and sees your loved one or sees Evelyn, they may say, okay, great. I've seen you today. I'm going to come out next a little bit later this week. I'm going to have an aide come out and help you with bathing. Would you like bathing assistance? The family's like, yes, that would be great. Let's start with 2 times a week. Great. So the aide has to follow what the RN says and says, okay, 2 times a week, you're going to do a bath. Other week, you're going to do bed changes, right? So the aide can only do what the RN has stated per her license. And so that's the job of the aide. Now, anything outside of that clinical aid help where you need someone to kind of sit with your loved one for hours or so, that's paid out of pocket. All these services are covered by Medicare Part A, which we'll go over in a little bit. So that's the aid. Aid's time is usually 30 minutes, maybe it's 45 minutes for bathing and hygiene and support. And then you have the hospice doctor. So every hospice has a medical director. Every team of the hospice has a doctor who oversees a physician that's contracted with the hospice. Because it's terminal diagnosis and because we're talking about end-of-life medications, these hospice doctors are specialized and they're trained when it comes to end of life. And so a lot of times Evelyn may have had a PCP that she's been with for 20 years, right? That PCP doesn't fully specialize in hospice. So the PCP usually will coordinate and hand off the care when it comes to that terminal diagnosis to the hospice doctor. And it also allows for quicker coordination. So now the nurse can say, okay, great. I've seen a change in Miss Evelyn today. Something's going on with her, picks up the phone, calls the doctor reviews everything, looks at the medication, triages the meds, and the meds get drop shipped to the home quickly. So those are the things that make hospice a little beautiful when it comes to support for families. And that's the role of the medical director. So that's the hospice care team. Next is medications. We kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but medications are now covered and non-covered, right, under hospice. So a lot of times when the hospice comes out, best hospices, what they'll do is they'll review all the medications. And on Parkinson's and her terminal diagnosis, Evelyn's, these are the meds that will be covered under Medicare. And the non-covered ones will be picked up by secondary insurance. And so the best hospices, what they do is they kind of coordinate all that so that the burden of medication management, the burden of going to so many different pharmacies for medications is now off of the family, and now it's on the nurse case manager who's overseeing that. And they do a great job of reconciling those. And kind of there's maybe some meds that Evelyn's been on for years. And then now there's someone to look at it and reconcile it and review it and coordinate with the family and say, I think it's probably good based off of how she's doing, how her body's declining. Her body may not need all these medications because it might be fighting against her quality of life. And that's the job of the nurse to kind of guide and walk through and educate the family on these medications. And that's usually what the best hospices do, is the nurses will take time and guide you through that. So that's medications. Next is DME and supplies. So the hospice contracts with a durable medical equipment company and a supply company. And so all these supplies all this equipment is now contracted by the hospice, and they either drop ship it to the house or you can schedule it. So let's say Evelyn now is now in bed and has been in her bed for a long time, and that her bed doesn't raise up and down. The hospice can go in and basically say, okay, great, I think you would benefit from a hospital bed. Literally the next day or so, that can be delivered to the house. There's no charge, right? So these is all covered under hospice. Let's say she needs now Depends or Chucks or briefs, incontinence material because how she's declining. Hospice will do that and drop ship that out or bring that, or the nursing team will bring that to the home. So it is a beautiful help. It's a beautiful support. And instead of you paying out of pocket on Amazon weekly for those supplies constantly, the husband is doing that. Now this is the benefit of hospice to help families during this time when it's at the end of life. And so those are the three areas that we talked about. So now that Evelyn's family understands what hospice is, where do they start? What happens next? And so we talked about step one, recognizing that it may be time. And this is where probably the week or two before, her husband, family, the grandchildren, her children were seeing, wow, like Evelyn's not doing well. Mom isn't doing well. I'm not sure what's going on. I think she's declining more. She goes to the hospital, right? And the doctor writes the order, right? Now, after reviewing everything, the doctor will send out an order and recommend hospices. Now, this is where the family chooses the hospice or goes off of the recommendation of the social worker or the doctor and picks the hospice. And then the hospice admission begins. That's where that nurse, that quarterback that we talked about, goes out and does the admission and creates a care plan for Miss Evelyn to start care. And so the qualifications is what we talked about before. So not every patient will qualify for hospice, even if they're constantly going back and forth to the hospital. It's all about the clinical implications when it comes to qualifying for hospice. So you have little emojis here. So you have the heart, the lungs, the brain, cancer, debility, and all these areas clinically paint the picture. So Medicare created hospice based off of these local determinants of care, specifically to guide families to understand when someone will qualify or not. And so in this case, based off of Evelyn's disease and her Parkinson's and her decline, she qualifies. And so that brings us to the next phase is who pays for all this? Like, it's a lot of care. We talked about all that support, all that care. We talked about the whole team, the medications, the DME. Well, Evelyn has Medicare. She has Medicare Part A and B. So Evelyn is covered under hospice care under Medicare Part A, 100%. So all the things we talked about today are covered 100%. The only thing that's not covered is the aid services that we talked about, having someone sit at the bedside or help Evelyn. That's paid out of pocket. If there's meds that need to be continued that are not covered under hospice, those will be paid out of pocket or under your secondary insurance. But those areas that we discussed, those are all covered. And so it's a great help for families. Now, if you're younger than 65 and you don't have Medicare, your insurance plan, you may have a benefit under your insurance for hospice care. Look into that. And so when that happens, usually we recommend families to call your insurance. And if let's say Evelyn was 55, she didn't have Medicare. Let's say she had Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then the doctor wrote the order. So for hospice, then usually in those situations, the hospice has to have a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield or her insurance in order to provide care. So we usually recommend families to call their insurance carrier and give them a list of all of the hospices who are in network with that carrier, and then start going from there to kind of find the best hospice, the best fit for you or for your family. And so those are the insurance and the payer sides, which is a big deal. And so now instead of, like we talked about before, buying those supplies on Amazon, the hospice will give you like a set list or formulary that they will provide because it's all provided by the government. Now, let's say you want some really nice, fancy stuff, fancy supplies or fancy equipment, then of course you would have to pay out of pocket. But this is what Medicare is covering. This is what the hospice will cover for care. And so Miss Evelyn, now she's been admitted, and we're talking about 7 months later. She's on hospice at home. She's sitting on her porch again. She has aides that we talked about that are coming 2 to 3 times a week. a nurse coming to help with managing her care and symptoms. She's able to enjoy her family at home because she wanted to be at home. Social worker comes in, chaplain comes in and prays because she's a Christian, so her faith is very important to her, and durable medical equipment's there, and she's at home and she's surrounded and she's able to live her last days comfortable and knowing that her wishes are honored, which is the biggest thing. And so that's Evelyn's story. So her story has several tiers to it. If we look back and think about Evelyn and how she was 55 in Georgia, line dancing, hairdresser, right, doing pretty good. In her 70s, she started having more symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and now she had therapy. So on this spectrum, she had home health, right? So home health was there specifically to help her improve and to help increase her mobility and functional mobility, and nursing was there too. And so at that time, she didn't need personal care, which is what I was talking about before. Someone to come in to help with bathing or ADLs or things like that would be paid out of pocket. Palliative care, let's say if Evelyn wanted to continue to seek aggressive treatment and do some trials, right, for her Parkinson's disease, she wouldn't then qualify for hospice because basically when hospice starts, you have agreed to not pursue aggressive treatment and to just really focus on quality of life at home. And so this is where all these things underneath healthcare at home happens for seniors that can be super confusing. And so that's why we wanted to at least make it a little bit simpler for everyone. So I hope that helped everyone. Miss Evelyn's story, she's doing pretty good. But I think the hardest part when it comes to hospice care is just understanding the layers. We talked about the 3 areas of care that you can get, and DME supplies and medication management. And it's just understanding it and understanding that is there for families when the time is right and when you qualify for it. So, but yeah, I think we got maybe a couple questions. I don't know if I think JT may be in the back. Let's see if I can pull him in here in a second. All right. Hey.
So, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, perfect. How's it going?
Going pretty good. Good stuff. I just wanted to follow up. Doesn't look like we have any YouTube questions right now, but I noticed on our YouTube channel you posted a video last week and you said hospice is like speed dating. For anyone that hasn't watched that yet, without spoiling too much of the video, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I think it's kind of so let's go back to Evelyn, right? So, Evelyn is in the hospital right at that time, and the doctor writes the order for hospice care. Most people do not have their hospices picked out. All right. It's weird, right? Like you don't have your hospices lined up, knowing that when you need it, you'll call the hospice, right? So a lot of times what happens is that the social worker or the doctor will say, okay, here's these 4 hospices that are in the area that you need to pick from, right? And so now you're going in, looking at the list and say, all right, let me call ABC Hospice. All right, pick up the phone, call. Okay, who are you? What do you like? Are you quick to respond to me? And so it's in a weird way, we try to make it light, but it is like speed dating. You're trying to figure out who's going to match with me, right? Who's going to match with my loved one. And so that's kind of like we're trying to make it a little light because it is true. It's like, it's a very weird place to be when you're trying to figure out hospice care for your loved one at a very heightened emotional time. And now you're trying to pick people, to serve your loved one. So it's super weird. So
Cool.
Yeah.
And for those of you that have, filled out the form that's on this link or called our office, we've been honored to hear everybody's story and walk with you through this time. And so as administrator, Charles, what would you say is like the reason, now that you've educated everyone on what hospice is, what makes, when it's speed dating or when it's in a heightened moment, what makes Charlene different when someone talks to you?
Yeah, I think there's so many. There's lots of hospices to pick from, right? And so I think you just have to you have to go with what makes sense for your loved one and their wishes, right? So for us, we're in the Metroplex. We're not corporate affiliated. We're family owned. We're faith based, and we try to tailor towards the needs of the family. And so we do a lot of education. So our team is trained clinically, but they have proper bedside too. So when someone's coming into your house, you're gonna feel like this guest is actually welcomed, and they're not gonna be rude and not gonna be abrasive, right? And so I think that's what separates us when it comes to other hospices. And we're a legacy company, so we'll never sell to private equity. And a lot of corporations are coming in and changing the industry. So I always recommend families to just interview, talk to, and figure out what's best for you. And for us, we're not going to serve everybody, right? There's some families that may not pick us, or may pick us and go to somewhere else. But it's all about making sure that your loved one is taken care of, and whoever fits you is the best. And so that's the model that we kind of hold to. So
Sweet. Well,
yeah.
if you haven't already checked us out on social media, if you're joining us on LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram or wherever you're coming from, check out our page. We post stuff daily on there to continue educating. And then if you have someone, loved one, family member, neighbor, somebody that fits the description of what we talked about, especially if it's Parkinson's this month, uh, these are the ways to get in touch with us.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, hey guys, it's a pleasure seeing you guys. We'll see you guys next week. We'll have another Parkinson's patient to walk through when it comes to hospice care or healthcare at home. And looking forward to seeing you guys next week. God bless.